Okay, green mixed with red makes white, makes cold gray. We'll see if it's true. I've got my thing here. And I've been listening to your music. And I am not convinced. So go ahead and talk about the song a little bit, boys, but I'm doing some painting.
Oh.
Talk about the song, Matt.
Yeah, this one was a Matt tune to start with.
Yeah. Really? Wow.
So this song predates the Everything Compromised sessions. It was me and Joey hanging out, thinking we were going to make songs that were just my songs that I was going to release, but of course they never really went anywhere. So this was the last song that we did together, and Joey just decided that he wanted to do something with the rhythmic thumping sound, like that he could create with his Juno, tied into his computer in some way. So once he had that sound going, then he's like, all right, now play some stuff to go along with it. I think the first thing that I did was the part that's like the do. And I thought it was gonna evolve something along those lines. But I think Joey said he didn't really like it all that much. So after we recorded in Nashville, I think we ended up with like 7 songs or something. Mm-hmm. And we were like, well, I guess we had 8 songs, so we needed 2 more. And me and Joey had these 2 other songs that were like, well, I guess we gotta turn these into something.
After Everything Compromised was actually released in 2017 or 2018, then we said, hey, here's these 2 other songs, by the way, that we want to add onto the vault sessions that we had recorded in the midst of finalizing Everything Compromised. So we were working on the 2 albums simultaneously, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
The goal was to take a 30-minute soundscape and make it into a 4 or 5-minute song. And so Matt and I sat in the room and just sort of spliced up this 30-minute soundscape into verse, chorus, basically. And that is how the structure came about. But at that point, it didn't even have drums on it. It was just about 10 or 12 or 15 keyboard tracks.
So would you say Matt was like the green, and then you mixed a little red 6 years later?
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
Mm-hmm. Matt and Joey cut it up, and then Paul gave it a live drum beat, like in a live drum pulse in Chicago when Joey and Paul did recording, and that sort of shifted what had been recorded before. And then so we were taking like a completely digital tune, and then we were starting to make it putting live instruments on it, and that's where it started to shift a bit.
So in the original Vault, we did 1 song. The very last song that we did, Paul Clemson took the cymbals, and I played just like the drums, the tuned percussion, kick, snare, floor tom. And so we thought that was really cool how that turned out. And so the idea for Wrapped in Blue was to recreate a 2-drummer vibe. So I actually tracked cymbals on one, separately, and then did the kick, floor, tom, snare separately.
but to bring Paul's comment full circle, because I think it's a good talking point, is like whenever, so I'm really good at production when everything happens in the same room, in the same space, and the same mic setup, and everything's the same. And this was a situation where we didn't have that. We had a bunch of stuff that was recorded here, and then we had a bunch of stuff that was like just kind of shambled together. And so this was a shambled together tune, and so I'm just grasping for ways to make this fit with the thing that we did with Paul Clemson. And so like it was perfect. It was a perfect suggestion on Paul Goodenough's part to try and do drums and cymbals separately, because it entirely matched.
So Paul, was it
we did 4 years earlier? So
was it something that is it ever something that you're like, because you're wanting to do more than like what your limbs allow, and you're like, I want to focus on this, but I want this other thing? Is that what's going on? Or
No, I don't think so.
so what? Why do you need to do it like that?
Why not?
I think
what does it, why would you not do everything? What does it, I mean, there's people listening. I would never have imagined.
Yeah, I think it
goes
to the idea of dialogue, of inviting the thing that is inviting the thing that you can't control into the room when you're recording.
Oh, okay. So taking drumming to a collaborative level.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
thanks for sharing.
I think
it's beautiful.
This is funny because we're talking about a different song at this point, but it is what inspired the drumming on Wrapped in Blue. But I think in the initial session, it was just like, I think we were like, again, we spent 5 days, and PK had just sort of been in the background making things sound good, and I think we wanted to bring him in on a more instrumental level, and I think he wanted to be involved in a more instrumental level, and so it just, at that point, it sort of made sense, like, hey, let's just remove certain factors from Paul, give them to the other Paul.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean,
yeah, it was fun.
Just being able to open up and see, well, what do you do on this instrument? It just welcomes in the unheard sound. I really want to hit the white makes a cold gray waste, makes a cold gray waste.
Ha! And
when I hear it, I just hear a lot of Beastie Boys, which is interesting because you guys probably weren't thinking of that at all. But I'm coming as a listener, I'm like, for some reason, that's what it alluded and brought back and made me love this tune for that nuance that I then identified as being very different from all other Barry kind of stuff.
There's two songs like this on the record that are Matt pets that we sort of built in this way. And as I was looking at lyrics that existed from our game sessions, and trying to pair them with songs, I think the lyrics ended up being, they're the shortest lyrics. So I knew that there was going to have to be some sort of play on the lyrics, where repetition would have to happen, and then also like the music was going to have to stand out. And so it kind of made sense to add that to this song. So I saved these songs till the last very intentionally, because I was dreading them. But also I have a past experience of working with songs of this in this context that I'm ultimately freed the most to experiment with them. So you wait until the end, and it's just like nothing else matters, and you just do whatever you want. So the other thing I think is Paul's drums, however they ended up being, and I think what we've left out is all the drums are doubled too. So it's not just a drum track and a cymbal track, it's
Yeah.
2 drum tracks and 2 cymbal tracks.
Yeah. One
but
was with brushes, one was with sticks.
And I think I might have even added drums to that back here. But anyway, all of that aside, like the drums ended up being very tribal sounding. And so if I was going to attribute them to something, it would be like this idea of like a tribal mindset and like.
So the percussion of that part
Mhm.
exists before any sense of melody or direction.
Oh yeah, yeah.
In the grand scheme, it's very interesting because you guys have never played this song all live. Like, talk just about your experience. What did you get? What did you do with it?
Sure.
How did you feel about it? And
The following summer, after Paul and Joey recorded in Chicago, Joey came to New York. And that's when we recorded 2 of the bass tracks, and this was one of them. So Joey and I recorded this track together, and we figured out the bass line together too, because we were trying to take Matt's original keyboard parts and then Paul's tribal rhythmic interpretation of it. And then we needed to find this bridge that was where the bass lived. And so
Yeah.
Joey and I played a lot with that. This tune was like, talk about collaboration. This was all of us bringing our own voice into this thing. And it was really cool because I think the end product of it, this is one of the most complex and I think interesting tunes on this record because there's elements of all of us in here. We're having this really cool dialogue and we were never playing in the same mood together. Like, that takes a shitload of listening as you're doing this. Like, for Paul to create his drum track based on Matt's original shit, he had to be with Matt in his head and like feel Matt and then recreate it with the drums.
I lament the recording process that our distance has forced us into. And I think this song is as much of an example as anything. I think that, as Shane suggested, we could have never come to this song if we hadn't closely listened to individual parts as we were trying to come up with fresh parts to them. But I also just really grieve the idea of playing this live for a year now that the song exists,
right.
and turning that.
Your guys' record like has to fit within a discography. See, that's where I love Barry so much, is that I have to listen to these new tunes within the history of it.
I'm going to plug the very first song that could probably be considered a Barry song. And it's actually a song that Joey did. So it's on pre-V sessions on our Bandcamp site. I think that's the only way that album exists. And the very first song is called Naked. So Bandcamp, or berrytheband.bandcamp.com, pre-V sessions, track 1, song called Naked. And it's kind of a loopy drum part. When we were talking about this, I was like, dude, that's the thread right there. I mean, it's fun to think about how that thread may have always been there. And there are other places that I could say in our discography that I would say that's kind of emerged. Courtney Love is another one. There's a little bit of an aggressive, talking, yelling thing happening.
Jesus Christ, the cops are coming afterwards.
I've heard a lot of the collaboration and the meeting and the listening to, not much of there's this thing that I have yet to do that I want to live within this song.
For me, playing music is about what I consider channeling the universe. It's, various aspects of myself that have existed for 14 billion years. And here I am, a manifestation of, all of this time and various processes and changes in the universe that have, generated us and allowed us to, play music, and this is me expressing, all of that experience. And I think this song really kicks in the channeling, and it feels like, yes, we have been around for all of this time, and only now are we able to express that experience. And that's what it is to me.
That is a great response, Matt. And I'll add that there's a point, and notably we haven't talked about there being strings on this song yet. But there's a point about halfway through the song, because I do think the strings are sleeper on this song. But about halfway through the song, the strings sort of swell in for a second and then disappear again. And there's just so much going on that, yeah, you're totally right. It feels like some sort of just swirling chaos of existence or something. It's really nice. We should definitely close with your painting. I want to see that. I want to see that up front.
This is verse 1.
We just got paint all over. That is a beautiful gray.
Cold gray. Very cold gray.
Well,